Hey, how's it going? It's Aleks Ozols here. Thank you for tuning in with me today. I hope you enjoyed that little piano piece just in the intro. That was me just having a little freestyle. To be honest, I'm not really the kind of person who learns like pieces and kind of plays pieces off by heart and whatnot. You know, I've always been that kind of person who just loved just kind of, you know, messing around and coming up with ideas. And I guess for me, the piano is kind of, it's more like a compositional tool as opposed to something I just play to entertain people, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I want to get into in this video about why the piano is bloody awesome, yeah? Recently, long story short, recently I upgraded, well, just basically changed from Mac to PC. And the reason was because I wanted to kind of, you know, get more into 3D animation and whatnot. And obviously you can do that with Mac, but for some reason at the time I was getting a bit too excited and I was just thinking about the possibilities of where 3D will go and, you know, like, will I need to upgrade and will I need to, like, I didn't want to have to keep on buying a new Mac, if that makes sense, every time I wanted to upgrade. But long story short, I got my PC and obviously you can't use Logic with that, and that's what I've been using for like a long time. So I ended up using Studio One, and I have to be honest, man, the PC is upsetting me a little bit, you know? It has lots of little problems. It's not really the best for audio and music, I don't think. Studio One, it's a good bit of software, but it's just trying to get used to it after being used to Logic for so long. It's a bit tricky. But anyway, the other day I started, you know, writing just a piano piece, and for a little while now I've just been entertaining the idea of just getting more into piano, like writing just piano compositions, and they were always really kind of just a foundation for, you know, writing orchestral music too. So I'd write the piano piece and then, you know, you can orchestrate it. But I started to realize, man, that like the piano is just highly, it's highly underrated. It's a highly underrated instrument. For a start, now this is where I'm going to go a little bit deep, and you know, maybe some people will get where I'm coming from, but maybe some will not. I feel as an artist, when you're writing on a piano, the music and the tones and the way you mix the notes, it's gonna invoke something within you, and it's gonna pull out certain feelings and, you know, visions and ideas just from the music alone. And say for example in the music in the intro of this video, like it was kind of a little bit jazzy, kind of bluesy, but also had because of the modal nature of some of the trills I was doing, it almost had that slightly Celtic feel to it as well. Do you know what I mean? And again, by doing that and pulling out these feelings, you know, it's kind of it's almost bringing your kind of your mind to an ancient time. Do you know what I mean? But one thing I realized when I was using Studio One and I was just like, oh man, what's going on here? Like my software's not working. I wasn't able to really, you know, haven't been able to really kind of produce proficiently and quickly as I'm used to. And it kind of made me realize, especially with like AI and how obviously we're kind of going into this future now where like probably people are more likely to just be prompting music and whatnot, how it kind of almost invalidates the whole music producer role. Now, you know, stay with me because obviously I'm not trying to annoy anyone, but I just want to like just be real with you, right? Obviously we're going to that time where, you know, one's got a question like the role as a music producer or someone who makes kind of music on a computer. It's like, I think we're going through a bit of a rough territory now because obviously you're gonna have a lot of people who are just doing prompts and doing AI and whatnot. It's almost gonna like invalidate slightly the music producer role. However, playing a piano, there's something very kind of primal and almost ancient to it. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously I play piano, the piano I was playing earlier, that was coming from a computer. But obviously it's an instrument which is based in actual physical reality. And, you know, for a long time, people were playing pianos and they were sitting with their family or friends and they were playing a piano and they entertain themselves a lot with just the piano. Whereas if you think today, like, you know, you hear all sorts of, you know, it's quite trendy on the internet, you know, where people are talking about how, like, you know, everything's just superficial and everything's just fake and everything's just completely, you know, curated and false and whatnot. And it made me wonder, like, music production, you know, I love music production. Listen, I've been doing it for so long. I love music production, yeah. And I love the kind of the worlds you can build with it. But it kind of makes me think it's almost like it's a little bit in sync with the world we're kind of going into, in a sense that when you're creating these quote unquote kind of artificial sonic worlds, it's like you're detaching yourself from the kind of the objective or immediate reality you really live in. Do you know what I mean? So when I say that, like, you can have people who, and again, you know, these are just kind of my random thoughts, but I think, you know, hopefully you can kind of see where I'm going with this. So for example, like with the hip hop music, when it first emerged, it was a very regional kind of, you know, sound and like, you know, New York and, well, like New York. But now you've got a time where, for example, you've got a dude in, I don't know, in Russia who's probably making beats and selling like hip hop beats and whatnot, despite never being regionally located near to New York. And obviously you've got the internet for that. But you have the fact that someone, like say a guy in Russia, can sit down, he can make a hip hop track, and he can kind of partake in that culture despite never really being a part of it. And he can kind of partake by emulating the sonic palette, which came from, say, New York, right? And by doing that, he's kind of speaking a different language and he's kind of, you know, being acknowledged then by that culture, and he can, you know, sell the beats and he can say, look, I'm a part of hip hop culture, despite never being to New York, right? And I think in a way, it's like, again, stare at me here. I think that's why I think music production is almost like a type of magic, you know, call it what you like, you know, white magic or great magic. But I mean, obviously when I say magic, you know, it's magic in a way is something, it's a way you can kind of alter someone's consciousness through your actions, you know, whether it's through your art or creativity. And obviously, you know, black magic is, if you're doing that for nefarious reasons, white magic would be for good reasons, and maybe grey is kind of a little bit in between, a little bit ambiguous. But what I mean is, right now we live in this time where, you know, you've got producers everywhere making these different little worlds. They're bombarding your consciousness with these different kind of like sonic worlds, you know, all just made in their little studios or living rooms or whatever, or bedrooms. And it's, you know, it's in that sense, it's a bit of a confusing time to live in, because it's like, you start to lose that sense of like what is really real and objective, you know, in your life. And I think why the piano is so awesome is like, for a start, you can sit down and in quite a short space of time, you could, you know, write down the harmony, the melody, and you can write something which is emotionally more fulfilling and impressive in a short amount of time than, say, if you're doing a more production-oriented track where, you know, you're obsessing over the kind of the production details and whatnot and taking weeks to mix it. And I think, in a sense, that's why the piano is very underrated. You know, you can express yourself kind of like a lot quicker. Just wanted to further elaborate on this. When I say express yourself more, what I mean is piano music is a style where it's a lot easier and quicker to convey a dynamic range of emotions, whereas electronic music production, for the most part, tends to be revolving around 8-bar loops, etc. I think fundamentally the piano really kind of, it brings you back to the meat and potatoes of what music is about. It kind of strips away, and I don't want to be controversial, but I think it strips away the inauthenticity of what a lot of modern music is today, you know. Like, you got people who they'll go on the internet, they'll listen to this genre or that genre, which is big over here or big over there. They'll make it and they'll think, oh yeah, you know, they'll identify themselves with that and say, this is me, this is what I'm all about. When the truth is, they probably have never even engaged with people who are at the core of that music scene. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I think piano, it kind of it's like a representation of the roots of music, you know. And I just think that's why it's so exciting, you know. And I think when people might say, oh, piano music is boring and whatnot, obviously there was a time when people didn't think that way. I think why people might think just listening to something like that is boring is because they've been acculturated to thinking that everything has to be overproduced. Our ancestors would have probably just listened to, you know, 1 or 2 instruments playing simultaneously, or they would have been within a group of other people. And that's how they kind of, you know, got their rocks off. So yeah, I just think now we live in a time where we've been acculturated to believe that anything which is kind of like less than a fully produced track is just boring. But I'd also posit that things which are all focused on like the production values and whatnot, I feel like this is in a way is kind of symbolic of inauthentic society, you know? To further elaborate on this, when I say inauthentic, I'm suggesting that it's very easy to start producing simulacrums of a genre from a culture within which you never even had any real contact with. I'm not invalidating the creative and fun aspects of this, but I feel generating these types of alternate music realities only serve to feed a type of pseudo-self, which is divorced from the true physical reality within which it inhabits. So, what is my point? I just feel like trying to get back to the basics, something say such as the piano, I just feel like it's a way to get back to yourself. And if you follow my channel for a little while now, you probably know I'm not one of these people who's gonna tell you how to like be big in music. I'm really about, you know, finding oneself, because at the end of the day, that's who you're ever going to really know, you know, yourself. And I think for me, knowledge of self and these things is highly important. And I think music is, you know, it's a deep thing. For me, it's a spiritual thing. And it's, I know it's not like that for everyone, but you know, I think if you've kind of been down the rabbit hole a little bit and you've come out the other side, you probably understand and agree that music's extremely powerful in the sense that through sound and frequency, you can affect kind of consciousness and emotion. And, you know, it's got a very transcendental, almost like, you know, magical kind of quality to it, you know? So yeah, I think these things are worth considering. I think if you're like an artistic type of person, especially in a time with AI where it's obviously gonna start like, you know, disrupting the music production world, I think it's really worth considering, you know, the power of just getting back to basics and how it could fulfill you, but also maybe the simple way is, and you know, I don't want to sound like a Luddite or a Puritan or anything, but I think maybe that slight stepping back and that stripping back of things is kind of, at a very basic level, it's kind of a way for you to keep your own sanity. Do you know what I mean? It's just a way for you to kind of hold on to yourself. And I really do think that the worlds that you can create with a piano can be deeply profound, you know, and it doesn't have to be like something where you spend weeks and months, you know, composing. Like just developing a knowledge of, you know, obviously different scales and modes and whatnot. It can really enrich your musical making experience. I think it's the road to go. If you're trying to seek, you know, if you're trying to seek out more authenticity in your life, I think it's the way to go. And furthermore, I feel piano music is a good objective standard by which to judge someone's musical prowess. It also gives a level playing field for all those involved who would otherwise potentially rely more heavily on plugins and loops to create an impressive final product. However, having said that, in a time of AI generative music, maybe all those bells and whistles will be made redundant, and we will begin to go back to the more traditional methods of making music. More personal, more real, more intimate. I do kind of doubt it, but at this point, you never know. Yeah, so I need to get that out there. Let me know what you think. And obviously, if you've got any thoughts on this and you want to elaborate, then, you know, please let me know. I think with this channel, with my thoughts on music, I'm never really too conclusive on a lot of things. I'm always, you know, fleshing things out. I'm always open to new ideas and exploring new things, and always open to other ways of seeing things. But yeah, let me know what you think, and I would love to hear from you. So it's Aleks Ozols signing out, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.